people go out on their own to launch this business that is meant to give them freedom. We come out the gate and it's like, we take on all of this work for next to nothing and we're barely profitable. And so I think a lot of agencies, because maybe that's where people came from, like myself, you adopt this like, hey, we can do all of this stuff for you, but you miss the economical element of like being able to charge top dollar for it, where you can actually afford to deliver good results and still have a life. It's like they're attacking the traditional model, but with like these, like, I'm serving local business rates. And like, that's a recipe for disaster.
Welcome to Future Driven. I'm Adam Kopp, and on this podcast, I talk with entrepreneurs and industry professionals about the challenges and the wins in their business. See the vision, drive the future. Welcome to Future Driven episode 18. I'm excited to have Mr. Greg Hickman from AltAgency. Greg, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Greg, I went through one of your courses. I don't know exactly when, but 9 months ago, maybe a year ago, and was super intrigued at your company, AltAgency, and want to definitely dig into the services that you offer today. But give us a quick background of your career. What was your career like over the last couple of years?
Last couple of years, I've been pretty much AltAgency. I mean, I came from big agency, small agency, representing big brands, professional sports teams, and somewhere along the lines decided that I wanted to work for myself. And, coming out of college, my dream was to like be high up at like an ad agency. And then when I got there, I like just wasn't as thrilled about it. And I started following other online entrepreneurs that were like building their own business online. And that sort of led me into like, well, how can I do this on my own?
So frame it up for us a little bit. What year did you graduate college, and what's a big
kind of date me?
Well, okay, give us. Don't make me say what decade then. But when did you enter the professional world, and what big agencies did you work at?
Yep, graduated college in 2004. Then worked for an agency called Tracy Locke to start, which is part of Omnicom. We represented Pepsi, Unilever specifically, started in project management, went to account management working on the Unilever Lipton account specifically. Then left and went to a small shop that kind of entered me into the mobile marketing space, but we worked with divisions of AT&T, Axe Body Spray, the New York Jets, Florida Marlins, doing a lot of text message marketing. Then went to a startup, focused on higher education, like the DeVry's, Kaplan's, like online education, early days. Then went to a media company which would have been probably 2012. And we worked with pretty much all of the major shopping centers across the United States, like large shopping malls and things like that. And I did mobile there. That's when I started my own like thing on the side. Like I started my own podcast talking about mobile marketing. From there, I started a business on the side. I was like, created a course around mobile marketing for small business. I was coaching and consulting other people that wanted to offer mobile marketing services to small local business. Started making a little bit of money on the side and was getting ready to make that, the quote unquote leap. This was in 2013, entering 2013, and Cabela's, large independent retailer in the outdoor space, moved their digital office to Denver, where I live. And they had been listening to the guy who became like head of digital, who was like spearheading the digital team, had been listening to my podcast and like reached out to me and was like, would you be interested in this role? And it kind of like checked off one of those boxes for me that like I mentioned earlier, like back in the day, like be at the top of some like digital marketing team for like, it'd be cool, like spearhead this for a brand that is like family business, catalog business, helping them go into like the new age, I felt like I was ticking a box. And so instead of taking the leap, I took this job, kind of corporate side. And I was there for a year and then I left. Built out the mobile strategy, the mobile team, and left. And so 2014 was my first full-time myself, self-employed. And from 2014 to 15 was still mobile. 2015, mid 2015 is when essentially my Systemly business was launched, which was sales funnels and marketing automation, which has led me into where I'm at now.
Okay.
Big crazy journey right there. But that was
good.
The timeline. You asked for it.
Yeah. I definitely asked for it. So of the 10 years, 04 to 13, right in on there, we're at the agency life and everything. Are you on the account side, strategy? What was your kind of role at the agencies?
Mostly was like account management at the agencies, except for some of the boutique stuff, like the mobile stuff. I was kind of account management and implementation. There were 6 of us. So It was like, you kind of wore all the hats.
Sure.
I was involved on sales pitches, actual execution. And then the one other smaller shop before I went to kind of doing stuff on my own, I was actually more on like the biz dev side.
Okay.
So account management, project management, execution, which is, I think when I look back on it, I have like a fascination with like how people structure their businesses, how things work, the systems, the operations. And having got my start inside of project management, like I was the internal, like I made sure all projects made it through and back to the client. And so like, right. I worked with the studio, I worked with legal, I worked with account management, I worked with creative, like I was involved in everything. And like, so I like really understood how the whole ecosystem worked. And to me, I found that fascinating and I still do. And so I think that's kind of what led me to some degree into where I'm at now.
Well, yeah, for sure. So then after a decade or so, 11 years, you launched Systemly. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what that company was and the purpose of it and all that.
Yep. So I had kind of started using this tool at the time called Infusionsoft. They have since rebranded to Keep Marketing Automation, Sales Automation. I was using it personally, and I really started falling in love with automation in and around sales and marketing. So much so that we were kind of incorporating it into some of the mobile stuff that we were doing. The problem is I was selling to independent retail and they had no money and they barely were figuring out email, let alone mobile. And so I love the solution, but I didn't love who we were helping, and kind of went back to looking at, hey, like there are all of these online entrepreneurs that like inspire me, that are doing this thing out on their own. A lot of them are using this tool and they constantly complain about it. Maybe I could help them with it because I'm intrigued by it. They know they need it, but they like need to get more out of it. And that was sort of the genesis of me launching Systemly, which became, a kind of a boutique agency for sales and marketing automation, serving specifically online course creators, online influencers, that were all using this one tool. It was kind of the tool at the time. Now there's tons others, but that was how I launched into doing that. And we got a handful of clients really quickly, had a lot of retainer clients, authors, speakers, coaches, podcasters that were our clients, helping them build out sales funnels and to sell their courses and all that great stuff.
Okay. So then, so how long was Systemly around, or is it the same company you just rebranded to AltAgency?
Yeah. So Systemly was August of 2015. We launched, and we rebranded to AltAgency in actually the beginning of 2020.
Okay.
So, we're recording this in, 2021. So a little over a year ago was when we rebranded. But when we started doing the work that AltAgency does in 2017. So from 2015 to 2017, we were basically done for you everything. And 2017, we launched kind of our first kind of high ticket consulting coaching program, alongside our done for you services. And by the end of and that was the beginning of 2017. And by the end of 2017, we no longer offer, like we killed off all done for you services at the end of 2017. And so it was kind of like we were doing both until we realized we didn't need to do done for you anymore. And we didn't want to. And so since basically 2018, we've been doing the same thing exclusively.
Right. So for clarity for everybody, done for you is essentially you're an agency, just like what Matic is. We take on your problems, we problem solve them, we do the work, and we give it back to you. And that could be different day to day, week to week, and which is very unpredictable, and especially from client to client, especially if you don't stay within an industry. But the done with you is essentially you've developed a system, and now you're training and teaching others how to adopt your system and empowering them. Is that a good recap?
Yeah, I would say that's a really good recap. I think there's a lot more flexibility in, how you could define done with you. I think traditionally speaking, when I say done for you, usually it kind of relates to more full service type agencies. While it's not synonymous, done for you, full service, you do typically see most full service shops are very done for you. Like,
yep.
And done with you doesn't necessarily need to mean coaching or coursework either. It's just that the way in which you get your client the result is like a little bit of both. Like the client has skin in the game. They're putting some of their time in. You're giving them resources as the provider to make their life easier. But it's not like we're starting every project from scratch and we're we're taking on this big burden. Which I think kind of blends more into the consultative side of things, the training side of things for an agency.
Yeah. So we have an agency, full service agency, and we, take on a lot of, the internal pain that I have that goes ups and downs is essentially what led me to find AltAgency. Mm-hmm. So not sure, what exactly the customer journey was that, I stumbled upon some of your ads and your website and et cetera. But the thing that really stuck out to me was, the pain points that you talk about of, being in a cycle of, I think one of the messages that you have is if I gave you, 5 clients tomorrow, would you break?
Yeah.
And, part of me is like, hell no, I wouldn't break. I could do that. No problem. But then wouldn't have any time to spend at home with the kids, and I'd eventually break. Right.
Yeah.
And so, so I guess what I want to talk about next is what AltAgency does is it helps identify your signature service.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately what we're doing is shifting your business model.
Right.
For those that want to.
Sure.
So to kind of frame this, I think from the whole backstory that I gave you, right? Like I know what it was like to be 3 a.m. inside, taking a shower inside the agency because we were doing a launch for Pepsi that was going across all the different, shopping, the Krogers and the Safeways and all that stuff. I know what that was like. Like our agency was very much like a piece of that brand. And what I see now is people go out on their own to launch this business that is meant to give them freedom, right? Like a lot of us as entrepreneurs do that. Like that's why we want to be the vision. We want to build this thing that serves us. And I don't know where this happened, to be honest, but somewhere the small guys, we can't land the Pepsis. We can't land the Unilevers that pay multi 6-figure annual contracts, but you see the small guys, and I say it's not in any derogative way, the solo founder who's trying to launch their agency. They go into these clients and they offer a suite of services like we did at a 400 person shop.
Yep.
And that 400 person shop had less than 10 clients. and they were a multi 7-figure agency. And it's like, we come out the gate and it's like, we take on all of this work for next to nothing and we're barely profitable. And it creates all of this friction that doesn't exist when you can charge the big bucks. And so I think a lot of agencies, because maybe that's where people came from, like myself, you adopt this like, hey, we can do all of this stuff for you, but you miss the economical element of like being able to charge top dollar for it, where you can actually afford to deliver good results and still have a life, pay your bills. And so it's like they're attacking the traditional model, but with like these, like, I'm serving local business rates. And like, that's a recipe for disaster. And so like traditional model is really, you have 10 to 20 clients a year, maybe, and you're able to do 7 figures, but people come out and they're like, oh, I'm going to charge $2,000 a month for this retainer that is all things digital marketing and creative, when you don't even have all of that expertise. So for $2,000 a month, you're outsourcing to all these people and managing all these things, and you're barely making any money, if that. And so like fundamentally, AltAgency is, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. AltAgency is, there is an alternative model for your agency that allows you to have the freedom as the owner that you set out for in the beginning, but it can't be the way you're doing it now. It can't be you serve all different types of clients. It can't be you offer all different types of services. It's you solve a specific problem for a specific type of person that allows you to charge a premium because you become the expert at solving that problem. And you can deliver that as a done for you service. You can eventually offer training, consulting around something that complements that service and or the exact same service, but a lighter version of it. You could even have revenue streams that are coursework and, you know, workshops or whatever, training. And so I don't think there is you can only make money being this outsourced marketing department. I think there is a way to have like training, workshops, services, and, you know, consulting as part of your offering, where you're making money more than one way. And you're a little bit more diversified, right? Inside of how you make money. If you lose one client, it's not like your business, like you're out of business. Like that shouldn't be the case. And so that's really what it's all about, is like, there are more ways to make money. Like being an agency doesn't mean like you have to sell your time and or your labor. Like, I don't know where you look up the word agency, none of that ever shows up anywhere. That was the way you somehow chose to package up your offer as labor. And that's not the only way. And that's what we're trying to show people, is that you can live a better life, have freedom, make a lot of money, and serve a lot more people if you shift fundamentally how you operate.
Yeah, well, I think that's spot on. And it's funny you say that about the 3 a.m. shower working on Pepsi, because I worked at medium-sized agency in Chicago, and just a couple of podcasts ago, one of the creative directors that I worked with back then, we were reminiscing that's what we used to do. I mean, we specifically remember sleeping at the office working on a Subway pitch that we didn't end up getting, but it was just like, it was expected that you didn't go home until the main creative director went home, and that sometimes was never. And yeah. I'm like, does that still exist right now? Because I feel like that world.
I bet it does. I bet it does.
I mean, the latest we usually work is 6 o'clock around here, and usually that's a bit of a stretch. And I mean,
as the project manager, there were multiple occasions in the first 2 years, easily can count on 2 hands, the time that I probably worked 3 weeks straight through the weekend and slept at the agency over the weekend, because I had to be there with the creative team, like as changes were coming through, and like, you know, we were all burning the midnight oil all the time. And like, hey, get pizzas delivered, put it on the client's account. They don't care because we're basically their slaves. Right. You know, they're paying me like not even 30 grand a year, and I'm working, you know, 21 straight days without a break, you know, 12-hour days. Like, I mean, that's what it was. I mean, again, I don't know if that's exactly what it's like now, but when I launched my own thing, we just didn't know, like, you can't survive off those one or two accounts. And so you kind of need you need to be able to get more clients, but you're stuck in fulfillment. And then like, if you let fulfillment expand to whatever the scope is, which I think we did because we didn't know where the next one was coming from. I'm so afraid to lose a client that I'll just do whatever to keep them, not knowing that that's actually hurting me in the long run. And that was like, I think where a lot of people end up, inside their agency, and why they're a slave to their business, which is no good. No good.
It kind of feels like a bad relationship. You just feel like you're stuck there and you don't know if there's anybody else out there, but the power of saying no is huge. And I think, a lot of that comes in time with your business.
Yeah. You have to have gotten beat up a little bit, I think, to realize this, like
the confidence, right? It takes the confidence to be able to let some go for then the other to come back. So that's obviously the pains on the full service agency side, but you have combated that at AltAgency and have eliminated that completely. And so now you are essentially have your own challenges, in acquiring customers and so forth. But I've enjoyed, I guess, to dive a little bit further into AltAgency, and obviously I'm aware of your service because I went through it, but you had this really nice system that, this onboarding, whether it was you or your team, that, a lot of communication, you got access to the platform, there was feedback, there are calls. And so all this is what you call the foundations, the 90-day course. And so I guess I'd like to hear just, what's your kind of 1 minute on what the foundation is and what does it do for agency owners?
Yeah. So foundations, in 90 days, we help you specialize your offering into a core offer. And in many of our clients, the goal is to take that core offer and launch a secondary revenue stream, which is they're adding a course or a consulting offer or a 2-day training that can go alongside their existing services. And so it's really let's specialize what you do so that we can implement some systems inside of your business and have a way to make money more profitably. Not everybody launches kind of a new revenue stream. Sometimes they just choose to streamline how they deliver their existing services. Like Erin, one of our clients, she's a UI UX agency. They didn't launch a new offering, but she cut 65% of the things that they used to offer, and they specialized, and she got 30% of her time back inside of her sales process by going through this process. And so like efficiency, profitability, leverage we're like setting the foundational pieces of the business model so that you can build on top of that after foundations.
Yeah. And the thing that you're coaching on, training on, is just finding that consistent system that you can do over and over again. So you become really good at it and you become the subject matter expert, and you're not a jack of all trades, which might seem fun to do, but can be very taxing on time. And you're not honing in on a skill and just really nailing it.
For sure. And, I think there's a huge opportunity. And as I was alluding to, some people start making this transformation inside of foundations. Others will kind of go into our other program, Academy, for this. But like getting paid for your thinking, like all the people listening that have done services, you also have knowledge and expertise that is valuable that you can get paid for without having it to be tied to the actual labor of execution. And I think that's kind of a big shift for some of these people, is like, hey, you can get paid for your thinking and your knowledge and your expertise, not just, time for money and your hands to the keyboard sort of work. And that's like, if I were to like, my selfish objective is have everyone get paid to think versus just their labor.
Yeah. So then you touched on it quickly, but the Academy is your monthly. So after you go through the foundations, what's different between foundations and Academy?
Academy is usually more about scaling. So like, hey, we validated this thing in foundations. We got some clients. We want to make this thing the thing versus necessarily our done for you services. So Most of the people that come into Academy, their long-term plan is many of them to not ever have to do done for you again, which means scaling up systems operations team around lead generation, sales, and fulfillment of their current thing and their new thing that they launched with us inside of Foundations. And so it's kind of like scaling that up, growing as the leader, being able to take vacations and the business still makes money. Oh my God, that's a concept that's real. So a lot of our Academy folks, that's kind of their goal, is like, let's get this business to run and operate without me being the focal point across these, divisions and functions of a business: leads, lead gen, lead nurture, sales, fulfillment, retention, resell, upsell, all of that. So it's like, let's turn this thing into a real business is really what Academy is about.
That's awesome. So this becomes a really long, I guess, sales process between you and I, Greg, because, I went through your foundation, wanted you to have you on this podcast to hear more about it. But you're talking directly to me, literally, but figuratively as well, because I'm that done for you agency owner. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I get a lot of value out of it. And so now I've been forced to, charge, fewer clients, higher ticket price, but one or two go away, it becomes detrimental, whether it's somebody's a lack of a position, or one or two come in. Now, oh shit, we got to get more people. And then it's just like this scramble. And so I'm trying to find that happy medium. So going through your course, I had an aha moment in that, well, I went through the whole signature service, I identified a signature service, launched it in 2020, did it, kind of liked it. And then I realized I didn't want to do that. I want to develop a course very similar to your foundations. So now we're in the middle of launching our beta, the Matic Guide, which we're teaching people the foundations of owning their own marketing department inside of their business. And, our roadmap next is to engage with you guys on the agency side and then figure out, I'm going to be resistant, because I'm telling you right now, but I'm like, do I want to get rid of the agent, the full service? I think so, but
you don't have to. That's the thing. You don't have to. You get to do whatever you want, right?
Yep.
It's just it all comes down to what are the constraints that you are going to operate within and what's the goal, right? Like not everyone has the same goal. If just for the sake of like a broad spectrum, because I know people talk about it a lot, like we talk to a lot of folks who are like, I want to be able to I want to have a 7-figure agency. But I also want it to run without me. Well, you only need your Matic Guide to generate 7 figures if you focused only on that. And so it's like most 7-figure businesses hit 7 figures with one offering and using one marketing channel. Like 1 million to 10 million is where everyone starts introducing additional products and service offerings, adding multi-channel. Like it can be, and I don't think people want to believe that it can be that simple. I didn't say it was easy, but like you need to focus. Like we got to 7 figures just selling that 90-day foundations program. And then we added Academy. Like I didn't have to add Academy, but like I wanted to add Academy. You could have your agency, but like at some point, I feel like one needs to become the lead.
Yep.
And that's the bumpy part I think for people like yourself, where you come to us with an established enough book of business that you're going to have to go through a little bit of that friction and turbulence of, hey, you might have to release a couple clients that pay well, but consume most of your bandwidth to free up the capacity to make this other thing replace and surpass it quickly. We get some clients that come to us that aren't bogged down in done for you, that are able to move a lot faster. And that's an advantage that they have. But the reality is, if you have to determine, and I'm saying you, not just you specifically, but anyone listening, I do think you have to have enough focus and discipline to know, like you said earlier, what to say no to.
Right.
Because if you're like, hey, I want to have a 7-figure training and consulting business, yet you keep taking done for you clients, it's going to just probably take a whole lot longer for you to get there, if you even do, because they're just fundamentally different. So, I don't think you have to eliminate done for you. I think you might need to limit it. And then you could always bring it back once the other stuff is more, running smoothly. Cause again, you can make money multiple ways. It doesn't have to be one. Sure. I just chose that. Like, there's still some done for you stuff I'm willing to do. It's just at a price point that most people aren't willing to pay, but there are a few people out there that would pay it. And if they show up, I'll do it, but I'm not like chasing it,
Well, I'll tell you, kind of reflecting back as we're talking throughout 2020 is, I believe I went through your core. No, it was like Q3 of 2020. So it was more recent than I was thinking, but it was Q3 because I did expand in Q1 and Q2. And then, but I took the systemized approach and obviously applied it to build and launch the guide. But this year, in the first quarter of this year, I really took that systemized approach and I'm applying that to the agency and really being diligent, not only on the expectations of when we enter and when we talk to new clients, on what we're good at, what we're not good at, and really having that clear, okay, this is that 6 month and 1 year roadmap that we're going to stick to. And the more clear that can be, then now they're playing our game, not we're playing their game, and we're just being pulled into their vicious cycle of, hey, we need this done, right? And it's just kind of dictating the roadmap.
Yeah. And another thing that on like the internal side of all of this, Aaron, I mentioned earlier, is a good example, but there's a handful of others. It's like, when a big challenge that I see for people like yourself, in the owner seat inside of that agency, is a lot of things kind of boil back up to you. You have people doing some of the work, but like you're like everything crosses your desk, so to speak, or you have to like double check everything, or maybe you're still kind of like the main account lead. I feel, from just having worked with over 300 different people, 300 agency owners like this, like time and time again, the factor or variable that leads to that being the case is usually the broadness or the like how broad the service offering is. Right. And so when Erin cut 65% of her service offering and focused, and she said, hey team, this is our 9-step process to getting our clients the result that they came to us for, it allowed her team members to see where they fit in the puzzle. And they were then able to even, like, each of them level up in their own roles, which took more off of Erin's plate, which gave her time back. So like, if you're listening and you're like the bottleneck because you have your hands in everything, if you just got rid of, look, 80-20, like 80% of your revenue probably comes from 20% of the offering or activities. Like, imagine you just focused on that 20%. Do you think is it a possibility that you could remove yourself from that operation faster? The answer is almost always yes. Right. And so if you're looking for freedom and you're looking to not be the bottleneck, cutting out some things and specializing and identifying that core will let your team members take on more responsibility than they historically could have, because it's a fixed solution. It's like, hey, this is what we do and this is how we do it, versus, hey, the client needs XYZ. We've never done that before. Let's go learn how to do it. Let's go figure this out. Let's go find this other person that might know. Like, you don't have to solve every problem for your client. And the sooner you can focus on solving one problem, the faster your team can do it without you. And I've just seen it time and time and time again. But it does take discipline. And I think, again, for people like you who come from being such an integral part of your clients' like deliverables, it honestly, as much as I hate saying this, like it's more of a mindset thing than anything. Like you have to fundamentally unlearn what got you to this point, because that behavior, that way of operating will not serve you moving forward. And so like that, it's kind of like undoing that traditional wiring of what an agency looks like and looking at it in a new way through a new lens. It's like, it has to happen, or else you're going to carry all of the bad behaviors from how, like, I'm making assumptions. Like, say you feel like your business doesn't run well now. If you don't unlearn some of those things, you'll just bring all of those bad behaviors even into this Matic guide.
Yep.
Right. Like, so like we need to like fix the old stuff, the old way of thinking, the old perspective before we can kind of make some of this new stuff work. And well, that's often the hardest part.
Us going through the process of building the Matic guide really exposed a lot of those things. And we were able, by building that system and forcing it to be put into a scalable system. And that, and we're in version 1.0. And so it's going to become, stronger and better. And, looking forward to engaging with your group at the right time so we can level up and continue that. So I think all of that aside, or I guess, in review is systemize things, and things are going to get a lot better and easier and stronger, which is huge. And I
just think you'll hit your goals more effectively.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. So then let's talk a little bit about where you're going to go. You're still a young guy. You still got plenty of, gas in that tank. Where, because when you dated yourself, you're younger than me. So that's, that just by a couple of years though. But what's the future for AltAgency? I didn't realize that you were just only a year old plus as Alt. But where do you anticipate things going over the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Some of that I'm still trying to figure out myself, to be honest. But I think of a few things. One, I think there are a lot of people that out there that are still like me when I felt like I was, I'm going to build this business and it's going to be great. And I'm going to have flexibility and be able to spend time with my family and on the things that I love, but that now are trapped and actually worse off than when they had a full-time job. And like, I really want to be like the de facto solution to help those service providers like transition into something that they're going to be happy with. Right. So there's a lot of people that are in this situation and continue to be in it and will grow into it just because the way that the current educational system is. So for like agency owners, freelancers, and, service providers that like are looking for a change, like we want to be like the de facto solution for them. And so we're kind of upping our game around education, and obviously our own marketing to get in front of more of those people. Because I feel like we've only scratched the surface on like the number of people that we've helped out of the number of people that we can help.
Sure.
And I do think that, like for our future, and I say this internally all the time, but like, it's not the Greg show. There are a lot of really smart, like we have internal coaches and trainers on our team that help our clients. And the only way that we're going to kind of have the impact that I think we can is to bring on more, call it faces and experts to lead this charge in the different areas of expertise. Again, we only focus on like digital and creative people at the moment. I think with the right team that can expand into a much broader entrepreneurial scope of service provider, from like a business education. If I were to kind of like put like a label on it, I guess, is like, you guys, your agency, people listening, like you're good at what you do. Like you were a technician. you becoming a better creative or a better web designer or a better SEO isn't going to help you build the business that you want. It's going to be becoming a business owner. And those are different skills, different knowledge, and you need different training and a different type of community to support you in that development. And I think that's what really where AltAgency is going, is like helping people become the owner by giving them the business skills, the business systems, the operational systems to run and manage an organization that doesn't have them at the center of it. And so that's, kind of the mission and where we're going.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you laying it out for us, and I've really enjoyed working with your company,
Likewise.
not only you and everybody else, as you mentioned, and looking forward to working with you more in the future. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing me into the future.
I know it's funny because sometimes when I ask those questions, they're like, I don't know, but I guess I'll have, it kind of puts people on the spot to start thinking about it. But everybody kind of starts thinking about it. But, once you have to kind of articulate it in this way.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love the concept. I love, there's so much, like, I feel like with the technology, with what happened with COVID and like online learning, there's just only going to be a lot more disruption. And like, I don't think I think now more than ever, is the best time in the world to start a business of your own.
Yep.
With the least amount of money needed and resources needed to get started. But I almost feel like the lines as to like, hey, like there's only a few ways to build a business. Like those lines are either getting wider and also way more blurry. And I think you can do a lot more on your own terms versus, call it, for the lack of a better term, like going by the textbook, sure. like I think the textbook is being written as we speak. And so that's exciting. Especially for people like us that have skills to implement and help people. Like we know how to do the work. We know we have the knowledge on what to do, which is why I think us as technicians, agency owners, service providers, I think we're the most equipped to kind of straddle this world that we are in of like info and implementation. Like we have the knowledge, we have the skills to implement. How do we we're the ones that I think can bridge this gap. There's a lot of teachers out there that teach that don't know how to do. They just know the theory, and that's great. And there's a lot of people that know how to do, but then don't know how to transfer that knowledge so that other people can do it. And many agencies and service providers, I think, are equipped to make that and bridge that gap. And I think that's super exciting because there's a lot of different ways now that we can help people following, I think, the AltAgency methodology, so to speak, as a self-promo. But like, that's exciting. Like there's so many new things that can happen, like even just this year alone, beyond the future. Like that's why I can't even imagine, 5 years from now, what it's going to look like.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. And I definitely see, you personally and your business position to maximize that. And you're helping a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners get there. So I think what you're doing is great. So I've been appreciative of it, and my team has, and looking forward to more. So yeah, thanks, Greg. Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.